Have you ever wondered what the epitome of German engineering is? Well, it's not the VW Jetta. But today we are going to take a look at it and decide if it's a buy or if it's a bust. That's right, this 2006 VW Jetta TDI, very important diesel, has 200,000 miles on it. VW completely redesigned them for 2006 after having a pretty good reputation among the prior generation of Jettas. Today, we're going to see if this one holds up after nearly 18 years and at 200,000 miles. Starting up front here, the paint is shining pretty nicely, I gotta say, on this Jetta. Not really any peeling. There's one little chip peel right there on the front of the hood. Otherwise, looks pretty nice considering the age and miles. Headlights are not terribly oxidized. I do know that one has been replaced because it started to get all hazy, but the other one is factory. So for whatever reason, one got real bad from oxidation, the other one did not. Up front here, the biggest thing you'll notice is the front fenders do have rust on both sides. The driver's side here is the worst, and that is a typical complaint among Jetta owners. So you're probably going to run into that if you're somewhere with rust. Unfortunately, the rust does not stop on the front fenders. The rockers are also getting pretty rusty and bubbled up. No major holes or anything like that yet. But we're in Pennsylvania and inspections are an issue, especially for rust, and it's getting close to where it may not pass anymore. Everything on the back end looks pretty good. There is a little damage there to the side. The passenger side is not quite as rusty, but those rockers still have a lot of rust, as well as the front fender starting. As far as styling on the redesign for these, I actually think that VW did a pretty decent job. I think they're a fun looking little car and a little bit of an improvement over the previous generation. Today under the hood, we are looking at the TDI engine from VW. The previous generation of VW Jetta diesels was actually known as being fairly reliable, pretty good on fuel mileage. These are still pretty good on fuel mileage. They are not known for being reliable. This little diesel in here makes a whopping, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, 100 horsepower and 177 pound-feet of torque. I do have a theory about the horsepower number on this. I think it's odd that it's just at 100. I am thinking that VW lied. I have no real reason to believe that other than I just can't believe that they hit 100 right on the head, and I think this car would have been ridiculed if it was anything less than 3 digits. So my guess is that they actually probably didn't hit that number, and they just went with something close. Well, let's just start off with the biggest issue and get that out of the way, and that is camshaft wear. If you didn't put the right oil in these, they tend to eat camshafts. They tend to eat camshafts whether you ran the right oil or not. It is a catastrophic failure to the engine, and yes, it's a big deal, and you're pretty much going to be putting a new engine in the car. Next up, we'll go to timing belts, and that is just a preventative maintenance issue that is supposed to be done every 100,000 miles. It is costly to be done, and it's something you need to definitely be aware of. About every 100,000 miles, they need a new timing belt. This car has had it done twice in its life, so it's up to date on that. But if you don't and the timing belt breaks, that's another reason why you're going to be changing the engine. Since it's a diesel, it has glow plugs that heat your engine up so it starts. Those going bad and causing check engine lights is pretty common on these. It's not the most expensive thing to fix in the world, but it would be annoying because especially if it's cold outside, but anytime the engine is cold, it makes starting difficult. There's also some water pump issues on these engines, which is not the biggest deal in the world. It's not anywhere near as troubling to me as the camshaft issues, but it's something you want to be aware of if you see coolant leaks on the side of the engine. Now, this car is equipped with the manual transmission, which is the only option I would suggest. The automatic transmissions were not reliable. The manual transmissions are generally reliable, except for sometimes they fail the reverse gear. Your reverse will stop working, or it'll be very noisy. That's a sign that it's going to fail. Something you want to look at, especially on a test drive if you put it in reverse and you're hearing some extra noise. Now moving on to the interior, and boy, do we have some things to talk about in here. At first glance, the wear does not seem too bad. It actually looks like a pretty nice interior for a small car, and they were when they were new, but they did not hold up over time very well at all. We'll start with the positives, and honestly, the seat wear is okay. It's about normal for 200,000 miles. There's some stuff on the edges there, and I really won't hate on that too much. The steering wheel's okay, and the dash isn't cracked or anything like that. But that is pretty much where the positives are going to end. The first thing I noticed when I sat down in here is all of the buttons, the radio, the door switches, all of them are peeling in the oddest way I've ever seen. It's not like they've just worn through. It's like they're actually bubbling. The other thing that is on every door, and the front two doors are the best, but they are still having the same problem, is the vinyl that's on the door panel is falling off. It looks terrible. It really is pretty rough. The other thing is the headliner and all cloth material is falling off of the ceiling as well. You actually can't close the shade for the sunroof because the material is falling off of it. The digital display up on the dash still shows the miles, but it's starting to have the typical Audi issue when they use these digital screens. They are starting to burn out, so you almost can't see the miles anymore. And as far as actual electrical issues, these are known for having a lot of ground problems. The ground wires, it's tough to trace, but it causes a whole bunch of havoc on the inside as far as all of your electronics. One other electronic issue is power windows. That's a problem in this car, as well as most other Jettas. They just start to fail over time, whether it's the regulator, the motor, or the switches. As far as styling and actual comfort, they're okay. I don't really hate the car by any stretch. The seats are a little hard, but they're pretty comfortable. I don't have any big issues that way, but the actual wear and tear is pretty rough on these cars. One other problem this car has is AC. The AC does not work. It's failed, and they are generally pretty expensive to fix. So at 200,000 miles, you just leave it and sweat all summer long. In the back, if you look across, you can see that door panel, again, that is falling apart. And the headliner is actually hitting my head because it should be about 3 or 4 inches higher than it is. The actual space back here is okay. It's not great. It is a small car, and I'm trying to keep that in mind, but it's not as good as some of the other vehicles in this same class. The seat itself is actually comfy. It's worn well. I got no issues with that. It actually feels a little bit, nicer back here than some other cars. So I don't hate it. I'd be all right on a road trip. All right, we are pulling out in the diesel Jetta. This one is definitely louder than the next generation of diesel Jetta. So definitely, you can tell it's a diesel for sure. It's not terribly loud, but you can tell. All right, we're going to do a little pull here. All right, the power is not too bad. The torque definitely makes up for the low horsepower numbers. The 0 to 60 on these is still in the 10-second range, which is pretty terrible. But you can definitely feel the torquiness of the engine. Steering feels pretty good. There's not a lot of abnormal suspension wear or anything with these. That doesn't scare me at all. And actually, for as much as the interior is falling apart, it's fairly quiet inside. It actually feels a little bit more refined than the next generation of Jetta. I will say, as it's 90 degrees outside, I am not enjoying the lack of air conditioning. That would be something I would have to spend the money to fix. So that's probably a concern for you guys as well. The real world fuel mileage on these actually is a little bit better than they estimated. I believe they estimated at 42 miles to the gallon. And after talking to the owner, in real world driving, they get like 44 on these, which is pretty good. But you got to remember that diesel is more expensive than gas. So, you're probably somewhere around that 35, 36, 37 mile per gallon range in a comparable gas vehicle. The overall driving experience is very, very good. The more I'm driving it here, the more I actually like the car. It's definitely a positive. The fuel mileage is a positive. I don't hate the power, but I don't like it either. My biggest concern as I would be driving this is that this is arguably the least reliable year of Jetta. They actually extended some of the 06 Jettas into 07 because they couldn't make the 07 Jetta compliant with the new emissions and things like that. And we all know that VW had some emissions related issues, kind of a scandal there called Dieselgate. If you don't know about it, go look that up. This car actually does have a checked engine light on for emissions. Emissions check engine lights or issues don't really bother me. Fortunately, I'm in an area of the country where emissions is not a problem, but if you're in a smog or some of those areas, it could definitely be a concern and could be a hefty expense to get fixed. Now back from the test drive, and we got to decide if this thing is a buy or if it's a bust. The test drive went pretty well. I actually really do like the way these drive. I think they drive better than some of the other cars in this segment. I do understand that the car is slow. The 0 to 60 is just crazy that a car made in 2006 could be as slow as this is, but I understand that it's a diesel and the fuel mileage makes up for it. The price on these cars runs somewhere between $3,000 to $5,000, depending on where you are in the country and the condition of the car. And for something that gets 40 some miles to the gallon, that's pretty decent, really. The issues for me on this car come into reliability. These are just not known to be reliable. The people who have them have had many problems. This is kind of an exception rather than the rule for these cars. And the repairs, because of it being diesel, are more expensive than a gas car. And there's just really no way that I could recommend specifically the 06 for someone to buy. They tried to do some updates. Unfortunately, the car just did not hold up. That's why today we are going to call the 06 Jetta diesel a bust. Unfortunately, VW just did not make the Jetta diesel better than the previous generation. I don't have as much of an issue with those, although I haven't reviewed one yet. Looking forward to doing that someday. If you have one of these Jettas, let me know what problems you had. If you love it, if you hate it, I would love to hear about it. If you think I'm right or wrong, I want to hear about that too. Please put those comments down below. I want to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much for watching.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so